I never thought much about living alone until my sister Sarah left for her 2-week business trip to Seattle. We'd shared this house for 3 years, and I'd grown comfortable with our routine. But as I watched her car pull away that Tuesday morning, Hazel, my golden retriever, pressing against my leg, I felt an unfamiliar twinge of unease. The first few days passed normally enough. I worked from home, took Hazel for walks, and settled into a quiet rhythm. But on Friday evening, everything changed. I was making dinner when someone knocked on the front door. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his 40s wearing a button-down shirt and khakis. He looked ordinary enough, but something about his stance made me hesitate. "Hello?" he called out. "Just checking to make sure everything's okay in there." I didn't respond. There was no reason for anyone to be checking on me, and I hadn't called for any services. After a minute, he walked away. I double-checked the locks and tried to shake off my unease, but he came back an hour later, knocking more insistently this time. "I know you're home," he said, his voice harder. "I'm just trying to help." Hazel growled softly beside me, her hackles rising. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. They took a report but said there wasn't much they could do without more information. That night I barely slept, jumping at every sound. The weekend passed without incident, and I started to think I'd overreacted. Maybe he'd been a well-meaning neighbor or a misguided salesman. But Tuesday night, everything escalated. I was watching TV around 11 when Hazel's ears perked up. She stared at the back door, her body tense. Then I heard it, the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. My chest tightened as I muted the TV, straining to listen. The footsteps circled the house, pausing occasionally. I clutched my phone, finger hovering over 911. Then silence. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Just as I started to relax, thinking whoever it was had gone, I heard a different sound. The distinct click of our front door handle turning. My blood ran cold. I was certain I'd locked it. Hazel and I crept to my bedroom, and I quietly closed and locked the door. Through the thin walls, I heard the front door open. Then voices. 2 men speaking in low, casual tones, as if they belonged there. "Check upstairs first," one said. "I'll look down here." "You think anyone's home?" the second voice asked. "Nah, lights are probably on timers, but work fast anyway." I heard them moving through the house, opening drawers, rifling through things. They weren't even trying to be quiet. My hands shook as I texted 911, explaining my situation. Hazel pressed against me, trembling but staying silent. "Hey, there's dog food in here," one called out. "They might have a dog." "Don't see one. Must be with the owner." They were getting closer to my bedroom. I could hear them in the hallway now, trying doors. My window was too small to escape through, and I was trapped. But then I remembered. My bedroom shared a wall with my neighbor's guest room. Their window was always open, and there was a small ledge between our houses. Making a swift decision, I eased my window open. The screen popped out easily, and I could see the ledge, narrow but manageable. Hazel whined softly as I lifted her, but she trusted me. With trembling arms, I helped her onto the ledge. She understood, carefully making her way to the neighbor's window. Just as I heard my bedroom door handle jiggle, I climbed out after her. The cool night air hit my face as I inched along the ledge, trying not to look down. Behind me, I heard my bedroom door crash open. "Empty," a voice called out, "but the window's open." I was already climbing through my neighbor's window, Hazel waiting inside. Minutes later, I was pounding on their bedroom door. Tom and Linda, bless them, called the police immediately. By the time officers arrived, the men were gone. They found muddy shoe prints throughout my house and signs of searching, but nothing seemed to be stolen. The police suggested it might have been a targeted break-in, that perhaps the men had been watching the house, waiting for an opportunity. I stayed with Tom and Linda for a week while changing my locks and installing security cameras. But even now, months later, I still wake up sometimes, heart racing, wondering if someone's outside. Hazel sleeps closer to my bed these days, and I've learned to trust her instincts more than ever. Sarah came back early when she heard what happened, and we've since moved to a new house in a different neighborhood. But questions still haunt me. Who were those men? What were they really looking for? And most disturbing of all, how long had they been watching before they made their move? The police never found them, and sometimes I catch myself studying strangers' faces. wondering if I'd recognize the man who knocked on my door that Friday evening. But I try not to dwell on it. Instead, I focus on the present, on the security measures we put in place, and on Hazel's steady presence beside me. Still, on quiet nights when the house creaks and settles, I can't help but remember those footsteps circling the house. And I wonder if somewhere, someone is still watching. James hadn't been sleeping. You could see it on his face. Dark circles under his eyes, skin pale like he hadn't seen the sun in days. And honestly, he wasn't even sure he wanted to sleep anymore. Not after the things that had been happening in his apartment. It started small. A coffee mug, not where he left it. The bathroom cabinet slightly open when he knew he closed it. Little things, just enough to make him second-guess himself. But little things add up. Last Tuesday, he came home and saw his kitchen drawer open. Just an inch. Harmless, right? Maybe he left it that way. But then the next morning, his toothbrush was on the other side of the sink. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just him being forgetful. Something was off. And then, the whispers. At first, he thought it was just noise from the neighbors. Thin walls, old building, no big deal. But these weren't muffled voices from next door. These came at night, when everything was quiet, when even the city outside seemed to hold its breath. Software constant. Just on the edge of hearing. James tried to brush it off. Maybe he was overworked. Maybe the stress from his new promotion was messing with his head. But something in his gut told him otherwise. So he did something kind of crazy. He started taking pictures of his apartment before leaving for work, just to see. And when he got home, the pictures didn't match. A chair, slightly turned. Books, not in the same order. His bed sheets, messed up on the side he never slept on. That's when he knew. It wasn't in his head. The security cameras were expensive, but he didn't care. He needed proof. He set them up himself. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one in the hallway. Those little red lights blinked steadily, promising answers. And for 3 nights, nothing happened. James almost convinced himself it was all in his imagination. Almost. Then came Wednesday. He was scrubbing through the footage, fast-forwarding through hours of empty rooms, when something moved. 3:17 a.m. A shadow. Not a flicker. Not a trick of the camera. Something peeled itself from the kitchen wall. James stopped breathing, rewound, played it again. It was a person, not some shadow cast by the streetlights, not a glitch. A human-shaped figure stepping out of the wall like it belonged there. His hands were shaking. His coffee mug slipped, shattered on the floor, but his eyes stayed locked on the screen. The figure moved like it knew the place, opening cabinets, touching his things, moving with ease. This wasn't someone breaking in. This was someone who had been there before. And James? He locked his doors, checked the windows. Nothing had been forced, which meant the walls. His stomach turned to ice. The Oakwood complex was old, thick walls, the kind that could hide things, the kind that could hold spaces. His fingers were numb as he rewound the footage further. Night after night, the figure appeared. It always came from the same spot near the kitchen. And then he saw it. Some nights it stood in his bedroom doorway, watching him sleep. James slammed his laptop shut. He could feel it now, that weight in the air. The wall wasn't just a wall. It was something else, something alive. His phone was in his hand before he even realized. He dialed 911, barely getting the words out. The dispatcher's voice was calm, distant. "Yes, we'll send someone. Please stay on the line." Then, scratch. A slow, deliberate sound from inside the wall. James backed away, phone clutched to his chest. The scratching got louder, more frantic. The wall started to crack, hairline fractures spreading like veins. And then, a hand, pale, pressing through the cracks, fingers stretching, reaching. James ran. The police showed up minutes later. They found tunnels inside the walls, spaces, places where someone had been living for years. Wrappers, water bottles, a bed, but no person. Apartment 4B is still empty. Nobody wants to live there. But sometimes, late at night, neighbors say they still hear it. A whisper, a soft, slow scratching inside the walls. And those security cameras, they're still there. still blinking, still watching.